If you look at the official police reports from a small California neighborhood in 1991, you will find a tragic story about a house fire, an electrical mishap, and a shattered family. For over 2 decades, the official record of that night rested entirely on a single piece of home maintenance, a piece of plywood secured over a broken bathroom window with exactly 17 heavy nails. To the local fire inspectors, it was just a mundane, temporary repair made by a grieving husband. To the man who lived there, however, those 17 nails were part of a highly calculated blueprint that completely changed his financial future, allowing him to pack up his children and buy a massive duck farm across the country. It takes an incredible amount of cold calculation to turn ordinary household objects into a mechanism for wealth, and for years, nobody realized that the line between a tragic accident and a fortune was measured by the thickness of a wooden board. On November 20, 2008, emergency dispatchers in Seneca County, New York, received a frantic 911 call from a family farm in the rural town of Romulus. First responders rushed to the scene to find a horrific accident. A massive, heavy pickup truck had slipped off its jack inside a garage, pinning 23-year-old Levi Carlson beneath its crushing weight. His father, Carl Carlson, was present at the scene and appeared utterly distraught, explaining to the responding deputies that his son had been working underneath the vehicle to repair the brake and transmission lines when the jack suddenly failed. Despite the medical crew's efforts, Levi succumbed to chest compressions and was pronounced dead at the scene. The local sheriff's deputies and the coroner processed the garage, documenting the position of the truck, the mechanical jack, and the terrain. Finding no immediate signs of a struggle or foul play, local law enforcement ruled the death a tragic, accidental equipment failure. The initial investigation into the death of Levi Carlson closed quickly, but a subtle, unsettling pattern began to emerge in the background. Shortly after his son's funeral, Carl Carlson came forward to collect a massive $700,000 payout from a life insurance policy that had been taken out on Levi just days before the fatal incident. To the community and local authorities, it looked like a devastating stroke of bad luck for a man who had already suffered profound loss. Over the next few years, Carl used the insurance money to finance a lavish lifestyle and invest in a new venture, purchasing a commercial property to raise and breed ducks, selling the meat to upscale local restaurants. He bought shiny new tractors, a fresh pickup truck, and expanded his agricultural footprint. Yet, beneath the surface of his sudden wealth, members of Carl's own inner circle began to experience deep waves of suspicion. The primary catalyst for a deeper police investigation did not come from an external clue, but from within Carl's own home. His second wife, Cindy Best, became deeply unnerved after discovering the precise details of their household finances. While reviewing administrative paperwork and insurance documents, Cindy made a terrifying discovery. Carl had quietly secured a web of life insurance policies on her life, totaling more than $1.2 million. Understanding that Carl was entirely broke before his son's death, and that his various agricultural businesses, including a prior Belgian draft horse breeding company, were consistently failing financially, Cindy realized that she was worth far more to her husband dead than alive. Fearful for her immediate safety, Cindy began to look closely at Carl's timeline of personal tragedies and realized that his history was punctuated by highly lucrative, accidental catastrophes. Cindy decided to flee the residence for her own safety and took her suspicions directly to the New York State Police and Seneca County investigators. She laid out a timeline of events that forced veteran investigators to completely reevaluate the 2008 garage accident. Investigators realized they could not simply arrest Carl based on his wife's intuition or the presence of a legal life insurance policy, as taking out insurance is a completely legal activity. To build a prosecutable homicide case, investigators required hard admissions or physical evidence that directly contradicted the original accidental findings. Working hand in hand with law enforcement, Cindy agreed to act as an undercover operative. Investigators outfitted her with a hidden recording device, a standard covert operation tactic known as wearing a wire, to capture real-time audio during a face-to-face meeting with her estranged husband. In 2012, Cindy met Carl at a local restaurant under the pretense of discussing their relationship and marital finances. While the ambient noise of the restaurant buzzed in the background, Cindy gently guided the conversation back to the day Levi died, pressing Carl on the bizarre and unsafe conditions in the garage. On the secret recording, Carl's guarded demeanor slowly crumbled. He began explaining the mechanical setup of the vehicle, admitting that he had deliberately removed the pickup truck's front tires and hoisted the heavy frame onto a single, highly unstable jack before telling his son to crawl underneath it. Carl was captured on tape describing the setup as incredibly wobbly. When Cindy directly implored him to speak the truth about what happened in those final moments, Carl offered a series of rambling, evasive answers, stating that it was never planned from day one to ever go that way, effectively compromising his original statement to the police that the event was a completely unexpected equipment failure. Armed with this damning audio evidence, Seneca County investigators and state police investigators moved in, tracking Carl to his duck farm where they placed him under arrest. Instead of relying solely on the restaurant recording, investigators immediately moved Carl into an interrogation room, subjecting him to a grueling 9.5-hour video-recorded interview. For the first several hours of the interrogation, Carl aggressively maintained his innocence, denying any intentional involvement in his son's death more than 75 times. However, experienced interrogators systematically dismantled his timeline, using the recorded admissions made to his wife to expose inconsistencies in his story. Exhausted and facing overwhelming pressure, Carl's defense collapsed. He signed a comprehensive written statement confessing that he had purposefully knocked the truck off its mechanical jack while his son was trapped underneath, and then calmly walked away from the garage, leaving Levi to suffocate under the immense weight. Carl attempted to minimize his culpability by claiming his memory was fuzzy due to years of taking prescription pain medications for various physical ailments, but the technical confession gave prosecutors exactly what they needed. As the New York District Attorney's Office prepared to take the case to trial, forensic investigators began unearthing Carl's broader historical records, exposing a pattern of insurance scams that spanned multiple decades and multiple states. Investigators uncovered a highly suspicious event from 22 on Carl's Seneca County farm. During that year, a sudden, fast-moving fire completely consumed his primary barn, killing 3 of his prized Belgian draft horses. At the time, agricultural fire investigators had been unable to pinpoint an exact cause and ruled it an accidental fire. Following the incident, Carl had promptly cashed out an $80,000 insurance policy on the animals. When investigators cross-referenced this arson pattern with his life before moving to New York, the scope of Carl's alleged crimes expanded drastically, stretching all the way back to his life in California in the early 1990s. New York authorities immediately contacted the Calaveras County Sheriff's Department in California, requesting the original investigative archives regarding a fatal house fire that occurred on New Year's Day in 1991. Decades earlier, Carl had been living in a modest California home, working a low-wage job at a local sheet metal shop. He had openly expressed a deep desire to own a massive horse ranch, a dream that was completely unachievable on his meager salary. On January 1, 1991, a catastrophic fire tore through the family's home. Carl had successfully escorted his 3 young children, including a toddler-aged Levi, out into the safety of the front yard. However, his 30-year-old first wife, Christina Carlson, remained trapped inside the bathroom and died of smoke inhalation. At the time, local California fire investigators believed Carl's account that a faulty electric light had accidentally ignited spilled kerosene in the hallway, ruling the tragedy an accident. Within days of the fire, Carl collected a $200,000 life insurance payout, packed up his children, and moved across the country to upstate New York before Christina was even buried. With Carl now in custody for Levi's murder, California investigators officially reopened the 1991 case, viewing the old forensic evidence through a completely new lens. Detectives tracked down Christina's surviving family members, who had spent more than 20 years begging authorities to take a closer look at Carl. Christina's father provided investigators with critical, overlooked details from the days leading up to the 1991 fire. He revealed that Carl had secretly taken out the substantial life insurance policy on Christina just days before Christmas, less than a week before the fire occurred. Furthermore, forensic teams re-examined the physical structural layout of the burn site. During the initial 1991 escape attempt, Christina had tried desperately to push open the bathroom window to escape the smoke. However, investigators discovered that just days prior to the fire, Carl had boarded up that exact window from the outside with a thick piece of plywood, claiming he did it because the glass was broken. A detailed forensic review revealed that Carl had secured the plywood with 17 heavy nails, making it completely impossible for his trapped wife to force it open from the inside. The physical mechanics of the California fire also pointed to deliberate human intervention rather than an electrical mishap. Investigators established that Carl had intentionally moved a heavy wooden dresser directly in front of the bathroom door, effectively blocking the exit and sealing his wife inside the room. He had then poured kerosene across the hallway floor right outside the bathroom door and ignited it, creating an inescapable wall of flame. The timeline proved that his dramatic performance of trying to run back into the house to save her was a calculated ruse designed to deceive neighbors and responding fire crews while the flames did their work. Faced with the immutable stack of evidence regarding his son's death in New York, including his recorded statements to Cindy and his signed police confession, Carl chose to avoid a lengthy public trial in Seneca County. In November 2013, Carl entered a formal plea deal pleading guilty to second-degree murder and insurance fraud. The New York State Court subsequently sentenced him to a term of 15 years to life in state prison. However, his legal reckoning was far from over. Immediately following his sentencing in New York, California prosecutors secured a formal extradition warrant, transporting Carl back to Calaveras County to face a first-degree murder trial for the 1991 death of Christina Carlson. During the California court proceedings, prosecutors presented a seamless, decades-long timeline of calculated greed, showing how Carl systematically used fire and mechanical weight to execute his own family members for financial profit. Carl's grown children took the witness stand, delivering devastating testimony about their mother's final moments and their father's cold, detached behavior following the tragedy. The defense tried to argue that the decades-old evidence was circumstantial and that the original accidental ruling should stand, but the jury was unmoved. In early 2020, a California jury officially found Carl Carlson guilty of first-degree murder. The judge sentenced him to life in prison without the possibility of parole, ensuring that the man who spent a lifetime orchestrating deadly accidents for insurance payouts would spend the rest of his natural life behind bars. Thank you so much for hanging out and watching this through to the end. If you want to help me out with the algorithm, just dropping a quick comment, hitting that like button, or sharing the post makes a massive difference for a channel like mine. And if you haven't subscribed yet, definitely hit that button so you don't miss the next case. I also want to be completely transparent with you guys. Because of the country I live in, YouTube doesn't allow me to earn any ad revenue from these videos. Right now, the only way I can actually make a living and keep funding the research for these deep dives is through your direct support. If you got some value out of this story and want to help me keep going, there's a link below to buy me a coffee. Truly, every single bit helps more than you know. Appreciate you all, and I'll see you in the next one.